Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time, my name is Nathan Novian with Novian Solutions. I've been a general contractor now for over 20 years. This channel is dedicated to taking you through the processes of our work, but also giving you the confidence, tips, tricks, and techniques to get your projects done. So you clicked on this video because you want to see the process, but also learn how to paint a front door. We'll be taking you through the materials that we'll be using, the different approaches you could do, and also the actual process. So stay tuned and we'll get this going. Okay, so before we actually start painting the door, we do need to go ahead and prep the door. It's very important to prep the door as this will help it last longer and give you a higher quality finish. So let me go right into it, showing you the tools that we'll be using. Starting over here, we'll be using our caulking gun. The caulking gun is just a latex caulk, Alex Flex, you could use Alex Plus, some kind of latex, and this is to recalk any areas that may need recalking, possibly behind the hinges. Sometimes they don't get caulking when new casing has been installed. So we'll go ahead, assess, and caulk any areas that we need. Moving on to our wood putty. Now the wood putty is going to be used for any dents, cracks, gaps that may have occurred around the strike plate or in the field. To help any of those imperfections, we will apply it with our putty knife. We do have a scraper here that we'll use to scrape any paint. Also, this is used around the glass. I'll get more into that in a little bit. Then we do have our sanding block and our sanding pads. Now these are going to be used, we have an 80, a 120, and a 220. We'll get more into that later as we talk about how to sand your door. And then of course we have our tape and knife used to tape off and mask off areas that we don't. Now we are going to go a step further and we're going to be removing our hardware. So we're going to be using a drill for those hinges. And then to get the door off and those fine areas, we'll just use a long tipped Phillips screwdriver. Now, of course, we do also have our painting supplies. I'm using a 2 1/4 inch angled brush. I do have my paint bucket. And then for this, I'm just gonna use a foam roller that's a 6-inch foam roller. So let's get into it and I'll show you the next steps. Okay, so before we actually start our prepping the door, here's something to ask yourself. What level of finish are you hoping to accomplish? Now, I generally have 3 levels of finishes. There's 1, 2, and 3. Now a level 1 finish is I'm going to be painting the door with a brush and roller in place. So I'll do things like mask off my hinge while the door's in place. I generally am going to take off my handle, my doorknob as often as I can. If there's sometimes you can't or you don't feel comfortable, go ahead and just mask around it and just be careful when you're feathering it and rolling it. Now a level 2 is slightly different. With a level 2, I'm going to remove the door. That means I'm going to take off the hinges on both the jamb and the back of the door. I'm going to caulk areas that may have not been caulked before. Go ahead and do a little extra work and then go ahead and putty and get all those kind of dents out, anything like that. Generally around the strike plate and those areas with the hardware, there's going to have dents in the wood. So that's the difference with a level 2. Now a level 3, this is one that's a little not as practical, but it's a higher finish. With the level 3, and this is what I'll generally want to do, is I'm going to remove the door, remove the hinges, remove all the hardware, do any kind of wood filling on the jamb that needs to be done, any kind of caulking, go above and beyond in that area, sand it down, and then I'm going to take my door, and here's the difference. I'm going to take it to my shop, and we're going to do a spray finish on it. I'm going to also do a spray finish on the whole area over here will be spray finished as well. And once I prep the door at my shop, get it ready with all that wood filler, etc., sand it down, I'm going to do a prime coat, then do a light sand, and then I may do 1, 2, or 3 coats of finish on it. And in between those coats, I am going to be doing some sanding. Again, that's a level 3. That's the highest you can go. That's top quality right there. I understand it's not as practical for most people. All of these steps, 1, 2, 3, are great options. You just got to know how to approach it. So today we're going to be working with a level 2 finish. So we are going to remove the door. I'm going to go ahead and show you how we do that. We have a lot to do. Let's get into the prep work. Okay, so the first step is we're going to go ahead, because we're doing that level 2 finish, we're going to remove the door. Now to remove the door, there's multiple tools you can use, various ones. I'm just going to be using a flathead screwdriver that's pretty small and just a hammer. Now I start from the bottom up, because if you start from the top, the door can swing. It's much harder to control, so I start with the bottom and make my way up. Every door is going to be different. These are just regular hinges. I'm glad they're not bomber hinges or anything like that are much more difficult to work with. So these, we're just going to come to the bottom. You're going to hit it up. Now generally once I get the first one, I'm actually going to use this one to start the process. See, that one's coming up now. And I'll take just like that, flip it around. Use it to get this one going. Okay. Come up here. Okay. Just a little bit more. Okay, that door is loose and off. So come over here, unlatch the door. And there you have it, doors off, ready for our next step. All right, so the next step is we're gonna repair our jamb and we're gonna take off these hinges. Now, I've already taken them off of the door, they're very simple, but I wanted to show you what I was talking about earlier about that extra caulking. Now, this house was built in 1968, and so this 1x3 casing, I know was not the original. When you put on new casing, if you don't remove your door this, and you go ahead and caulk, you won't be able to get behind these hinges. I can tell now that I was correct. I can look at them. I haven't removed them yet. So let's go ahead and remove them. You can get a closer look at what we're talking about. You can go ahead if you don't feel comfortable and use an actual just Phillips screwdriver. I would be here for a little bit, so I am gonna go ahead and just use one of my Makita drills, my smaller ones. Okay. Okay. Let me take you up close so you can see. You can see how the caulking stopped. This is a very common situation, and so we want to go ahead and now we'll caulk that. So I'm going to take off the rest of them, and then we'll get to some caulking and to some puttying and keep going from there. Okay, so we got our door taken off. The next step we want to go ahead is mask off this door with our masking tape. Now, before we do any masking on the door, what I want to do is take my dust brush. I'm going to take the brush, start up top, clean off this area. Now I'm going to start up top and make my way down to the bottom, is so that all the dust, any material has fallen to the bottom, and I can finish it off there. Second thing is masking it off. Now, there's many ways people go about doing this. This is how I found to be the most effective and time efficient. So I'm going to take my tape. In fact, I'm going to turn you guys just a little bit. There we go. So I'm going to take my tape here, and I'm going to make my tape cut a little bit longer than the actual glass I'm covering. Okay, the purpose of that I'll show in just a minute. So I'm going to start off by just butting it right up to that wood. Okay, once I do that, I'm going to go ahead and take my putty knife. Now the reason for this is to get that right in the corner, get a tight fit. See that right in the corner? I'm going to do that on the bottom as well. Get a tight fit. And then I'm going to come in with my knife. Now that it's scored, I'm right in the corner. A quick little cut, incision there. There you go. That's perfect right there. And I'll do the same thing with the other side, and then I'll show you how we do the top and bottom. So, start off again, making it a little bit longer than it needs to be. Okay. I usually work the standing on the other side, but I want you guys to be able to see. Okay, so get it in there. Boom, boom. Okay, now that we have that in there, then we're gonna take our putty knife right up there. Perfect. And by doing this, it creates a little bit of a crease, which makes it much easier when you come in with your knife to score it just like that. Okay. Now, to do the top, it's actually very simple now, because both of these sides here have already been taped right to the corners. All I need to do now is just be able to make it long enough where it just overlaps both of them. I don't need to get out my putty knife and knife to do the same process. Just like that, all I have to worry about is butting it right up to the top there. There you go. Perfect, quick. I'll even do the bottom while you guys are here to show you the full thing. Come down, butt it, butt it, butt it. That's it. Just like that, not needing to do little strips, put little pieces in there. So this is very quick and efficient. Okay, let's jump to our next step now. Okay, so the last step before we actually start painting is just to remove this deadbolt and this doorknob. Now this is where my drill comes in handy, at least in the top. I'm gonna take it,
There you go, pull off my deadbolt. Now, however, to get to this bottom one, to get to this doorknob, this is a common scenario where to get my gun in there, they're hidden a little bit behind the ball of the doorknob. So it's gonna be a little bit harder to get in there, and I might damage this doorknob while using this drill. So I'm not gonna use that, and that's where our long screwdriver came into play. So we can use that to get in there. And I can do this without actually having to damage any part of the doorknob, and I'm not trying to strip out the screw. Again, every doorknob is going to be different, every job is different, so you may be able to use your drill as I've used them on other jobs. In this case, I wasn't able to. So this is the last bit. I undo that screw. I've already removed the other one. Okay, and here we go. Now that's taken off, we're going to get ready and start painting. Okay, so the last thing is dealing with these paneled areas before we start. Now you may have a single panel, a 6-panel, 4-panel, whatever. This is a 2-panel door. And how I approach this is first I'm gonna take my brush and I'm just gonna do this paneled area. I'm then gonna do the one next to it, get those 2 panels done. And the reason I'm gonna do that and not come up to the top and start doing this is because I want to make sure these areas are good. There's no paint running or anything like that. So after I do these areas, I'm going to take my foam roller and then do all the flat areas nearby. So I'm going to finish out this lower section. This allows me to make sure that there's no runoff from the paint, because if I do one of these sections down here, I come up, spin all the time, then I start at the top and make my way down, I may find that I missed something or there's some extra paint and it's running. Dealing with running paint is not something you want to deal with. So I'm just going to start here, do the panel next to it, make sure everything looks good, and then start using my roller and do this bottom section. Okay, every door is different, every job is different. I know you guys hear me say that a lot, but there's so much truth involved into that. There's not one way all the time to do this. Okay, so we'll start off this area, we'll do this door, let's get it going.
And there you have it. We reached the end. How to paint a door like a professional. Thanks for staying with us. I hope you picked up a couple tips and tricks, and I'll see you on the next one.